dealing with the Bretton Woods institution is like loaded dice. In one breath, they tend to give you advice. And I do not want to say that those pieces of advice are necessarily ideological. Again, they are part of the economic literature of the world. And some have applied them and they've worked for them. I can understand that in certain contexts, it is the behavior of leaders which essentially make it difficult for some of these institutional arrangements to manifest. Really, the problem has been the scarcity of discipline rather than the scarcity of common sense. If I may add that. You do recall that there were temporary moments of, success. If you look at the fact that the first IMF program returned almost a 7% GDP, inflation was almost at 3% during Buzia's time. The question was, what happened afterwards? If you look at the fact that in the 80s, after going through an austerity program, the IMF and the World Bank gave some money, there were some temporary gains. Unfortunately, what we use the gains for is what we should be asking ourselves. What did we do? 1992, 1996, the year 2000, 2004, 2008, we have always spent beyond our budget. Let's not forget that those interventions from the IMF and the World Bank did contribute significant resources, stabilize the economy during the era of the Kufuor regime, if I'm not being tautological. But during the Kufuor era, midway, they did the program. I mean, contrary to the notion that they pulled out of an IMF program, there was actually an IMF World Bank program which manifested in the poverty reduction strategies. Did they help? We all know those policies did help a lot and actually stabilized the country to the extent that by the time Kufuor was leaving office, he had actually quadrupled the value of the economy from $4 billion to $16 billion, which essentially led us to be tagged as lower middle income country. But what happened? In 2008, we saw the same scenario again. During an election, we spent so much that the deficit situation was out of order. Now that we went for an IMF program in 2014, the question we should be asking is, do we really need the IMF? And I think I have some figures here to ask ourselves those questions and then probably help ourselves to answer the questions. See, over the last 6 years, the current government had enormous financial resources available to it. Now, in 8 years, between 2001 and 2008, the total tax revenue collected was 15.2 billion. In contrast, the government has collected a total of 62 billion in the last 6 years. That's between 2009 and 2014 in taxes alone. You can see the monumental jump, 15.2 billion between 2001 and 2008, and a total of 62 billion between 2009 and 2014. In the last 6 years, Ghana's total debt had increased from 9.5 billion, actually from 2008, to 76.1 billion at the end of 2014. Ghana's gold exports were between 2001 and 2008, almost $9 billion US dollars. Between 2009 and 2014, total gold exports have amounted to $25 billion. Now, the government earns significantly more from the revenues associated with these exports in the last 6 years. Sometimes when you hear the mantra that we are losing out on our hard foreign exchange earners, you've got to ask yourself if it is indeed true. I think we should be asking what really these funds have been used for. Now, cocoa exports between 2001 and 2008 amounted to $7.4 billion. Between 2009 and 2014, cocoa exports amounted to $14.5 billion US dollars. Now, government has similarly earned significantly more from the revenues associated with these exports in the last 6 years. In the last 4 years, oil exports have been almost $13.7 billion, and the government has earned $3 billion from oil during this period. So the question we should be asking ourselves really is that, did we need 900 or $950 million from the IMF? Well, I guess the answer is clear. And I do not want to believe that the issues we are discussing here necessarily have to do with the interplay of global forces. Indeed, our politicians are not seeing dark forces whenever they are taking decisions that do not inure to our benefit.